The Great Sphinx is the largest and by thousands of years the oldest monolithic statue on Earth. Located on the Giza Plateau on the outskirts of Cairo, the figure is the body of a lion with a human head that is slightly elevated and facing into the sunrise. The age of the Great Sphinx is uncertain. According to Egyptologists, it is dated to Pharaoh Chephren of the 4th dynastic period 2500 BCE. However, recent forensic facial reconstruction science has definitively concluded that Chephren was not the model for the Sphinx, and geological science, examining water and rain erosion patterns on the Sphinx, places the origin of the gigantic monolith at an earlier time, dating back to when the Sahara Desert was a wetter climate, at the beginning of or predating dynastic Egypt to over 6,000 years ago. Herodotus, father of Western history, writes, "History is in the realm of probabilities. It is the Egyptologists that must eventually conform their chronological theories based on speculation and probabilities with scientific evidence." Greek and Roman travelers told stories of a gigantic Ethiopian head growing out of the desert sand, but not until the late 16th century, when Western Europeans began traveling in the Ottoman Empire, were they introduced to the beauty and magnificence of the ancient Egyptian civilizations. Explorers, archaeologists, adventurers, travelers, and grave robbers tracked to the Nile River Valley, recording and writing in sketches the appearance of the Sphinx. In 1610, English colonist and traveler George Sandys sketches a Sphinx with the face and nose intact. In 1643, French aristocrat and traveler Francois La Bollier's drawing depicts the Sphinx as a female with an undamaged face. 1683, Dutch traveler Cornelius de Bergen sketched the Sphinx with a crooked nose and undamaged face. In 1737, Danish ship captain and explorer Frederick Louis Norden sketched companion drawings of the Sphinx, a noseless right profile view and a frontal view with the nose in place. Yet, of all the drawings of the Sphinx prior to 1801, including Norden's own frontal view, his right profile sketch is the only drawing that depicts a noseless Sphinx, and both of Norden's drawings depict the lips and eyes undamaged. In 1790, French landscape artist and archaeologist Louis Francois Cassis painted the Sphinx again with the face undamaged. When Napoleon invaded Egypt in 1798, his army was accompanied by 500 scholars, the Commission of Science and the Arts. Baron Dominique Denon, highly accomplished artist and French aristocrat who managed to survive the French Revolution mainly on his artistic talents, was invited to join the commission by Napoleon Bonaparte. Denon was known for his excellent detail. His drawings were photo-like in quality 30 years before the advent of the camera. In 1799, Denon arrived on the Giza Plateau, where he would draw the Great Sphinx from the left profile in his usual exactness for detail. His book, published in 1801, Travels in Lower and Upper Egypt, he described what his eyes gazed upon.
Its proportions are colossal. The outline is pure and graceful. The expression of the head is mild, gracious, and tranquil. The character is African, but the mouth, the lips of which are thick, has a softness and delicacy of execution truly admirable. It seems real life and flesh. Art must have been at a high pitch when this monument was executed. justice, has been rendered to the fine simplicity and character of nature which is displayed in this figure.
The final drawing of the Sphinx with a nose and undamaged face was by Luigi Mayer, an Italian watercolor artist, in 1800. In the year 1799, the French were decisively defeated by British Lord Nelson in the sea battle at Alexandria, dooming Napoleon's military campaign in Egypt and forcing him to flee back to Paris. 2 years after his departure in 1801, French generals painfully signed a surrender treaty ending the War of Antiquities in the Nile Valley. The French were required by treaty to surrender to the British their stash of antiquities, including the Rosetta Stone. Some disgruntled French commanders balked, stating they would smash artifacts before surrendering them to the British. Some larger items were thrown overboard into Alexandria Harbor, where they are still being recovered today. It was a bitter and defeated French army in 1801 that bivouacked in the shade of the Great Sphinx while retreating to the port of Alexandria for transport home. The locals, vendors, camel and horse guides that service the visitors to the Giza Plateau, who live in the working class neighborhoods nearby. They repeat an oral history passed down by hundreds of eyewitnesses, all with similar stories. The soldiers fired their guns into the face of the Sphinx. The next drawing of the Great Sphinx in 1809 displays serious damage to the face, the damage that is present today. Vivant Denon was appointed the first director of the Louvre, the French National Museum. Napoleon's military campaign proved to be a disaster, but the accompanying Commission on Arts and Science was a tremendous success. With the publication in 1809 of Description of Egypt, a 19th century version of Egypt Mania swept Europe. Many thousands of artifacts pillaged from Egypt during the war are in the possession of the Louvre in Paris and the British Museum, where the Rosetta Stone still resides. Ending the war didn't stop the looting of the Egyptian artifacts. Rather, it accelerated the rush for antiquities. Even the massive obelisks were ripped out, raided up, and hauled away. The giant Ethiopian head growing out of the desert sand was too big to steal. However, its image has become fair game for identity theft. The fakes and knockoffs bear zero resemblance to the fine simplicity of the original art. Its tranquility and gracious demeanor, its Africanness, all visible and described 5,000 years after the figure was first sculptured. This is griot historian Jumal Okeyo Jumal.